Hello, Night Nation. Trace Falco here. Welcome into the Sons of UCF Live. Joining me this week, Adam, no Mike. Hello, Adam.
No Mike this week. Hello, Trace. Just like UCF basketball, hoping to survive and advance through this show. That's our goal for this evening.
Is it that Mike doesn't show when Johnny Dawkins and the team record their 18th victory? A 76-70 win in the first round over SMU. The Knights move on now to face Memphis, and that's where we begin. They had to fight back in this one. They were down at the half, 36-28, and of course things started off sluggishly for the Knights at the old Horton. He ends up with 15, Adam. He had 0 at the half. And you know you're going to need some contributions from him. CJ Kelly with 21 led the Knights. So they did what they needed to do, as you mentioned, survive and advance.
Yeah, another slow start, a head-scratching start. Obviously, a couple of self-inflicted wounds, some early buckets that you think you normally would score those, and we had some trouble early on. Seemed like a lid on the basket for us. Seemed a little sluggish, I guess, Trace. I don't know. I don't want to say they weren't prepared or weren't ready, but seemed like they're going through the motions a little bit. And we saw, obviously, second half was a different story. But here's the thing with this team. We've seen it all year long. They're helter-skelter, from half to half, from game to game. You don't really know what you're going to get. I like that you have some veteran leadership on this team. I like you have Ethiel Horton and CJ Kelly, veteran guys. Every time the March calendar comes around, people always say veteran guard play is usually what helps the team propel itself into a deep run. We've got some veteran guard play, but it's always helter-skelter. They don't make it easy, but we get the win, and that's really the goal, although it probably could have been easier, probably should have been easier than that, but you got to take the win in these times of year, and to your point, we move on to Memphis, which is going to be a whole interesting, matchup, all of it itself. I think we've 4 points total have separated UCF and Memphis in the first 2 games, so you don't know what to expect when that comes around, but survive and advance. I mean, it's not the way I would have liked to have seen us do it, but I'm not going to argue with the result in the week.
Something, though, that you've talked about in particular is that they find ways, right? And we were on live last week when they found another way to lose a game. And you wonder whether that gets into their heads. And here, this was close late, and then they went on a run late. You mentioned veteran presence of CJ Kelly, 80% free throw shooter. He hit several down the stretch, 6 of 6 on the day, en route to the 21 points. So when they needed to, they closed this one out. And that's a good sign heading into the next day.
I hope so, Trace, but we've seen this so much. Like, I don't know that you can take one game and then compare it to the next, right? UCF's been so up and down that I don't know that you can look at this game and say, oh my goodness, the sky's falling. We can't win. Or I don't know if you can look at this game and go, hey, wow, we pulled it out. Now we're ready. Like, this has been such a helter-skelter team from game to game. I don't know what you take from this one to Memphis, other than it's a new day, a new contest, and hopefully we're more prepared and we start a little bit better, a little faster. But I haven't seen anything this year that allows me to go, hey, I saw this in game 1, so I know I'll see this again in game 2. I haven't seen that consistency. Now, could we come out and play really well against Memphis? Sure. Have we done it before? Yeah, but I didn't see anything in Memphis or in SMU that says, hey, I know we're going to carry this over to Memphis, because we just haven't really been that consistent all year.
Well, and I've talked about this where I asked Coach Dawkins in a post game a couple of weeks ago, you keep saying that you're going to play your best basketball. When is that going to happen? Right. And he said that best basketball, it's coming. And of course, we were live last week when they lost there at the end, and you still question that. So if, in fact, he's right, then that best basketball, is it today? Is it tomorrow? They're going to have to play better than they did today. In the post game, I asked Coach Dawkins to talk about that slow start off the top and then getting behind as much as 13. They had to keep battling back until they were able to close things out.
Well, in this one, Trace, to be quite frank, I thought we got some really good looks to start the game. I thought our first 3 to 5 shots were really good shots that we really wanted. It just didn't go. I mean, it's going to be like that some nights. And I'm glad our guys, when we came to the timeout, we just talked about, don't worry, the offense is running well. We're getting good looks. The thing we have to do is we have to just settle into the game. It's a long game, and just keep defending. And that's what we were preaching, throughout a lot of the timeouts, because we saw the shot selection and the shots we were getting. We felt good with a lot of them. So it's one of those things where I get off to a better start. Just need to see the ball going a little more earlier in a game like this, and that will happen.
In the beating of SMU earlier in the season, their only matchup in Orlando, SMU held to just 19 rebounds. They had matched that total with time left in the first half and out-rebounded the Knights. That can't happen if you hope to continue what now needs to be 4 games in 4 days, if you hope to win an American Athletic Conference championship and that NCAA tournament bid. So, you can't get out rebounded like they have and did today and expect to do well.
Yeah, I mean, with close games like this, especially in March, Trace, it's the little things, right? It's the 50-50 balls, it's the rebound, it's the blockouts, it's the charge, block calls, it's things like that will decide games. And look, here's the reality: is we thought we were better than SMU, and they came out and they seemed to stun us a little bit, and luckily our talent shone through. So hopefully we can continue to do that. I hate to. I think JP Gilbert made fun of me and said I was having the hopium this week, because you see the pieces that are there, the hopium. You see the pieces that are there, and you say to yourself, man, if we can just put this all together for 2 or 3 games, we have something, right? There are things that you can be excited about. I know we sort of do that, that joke, the best basketball's in front of us, but I do think there's an element of looking at the roster we have, what's in front of us, and saying, hey, we have the ability to play well. Now, Houston will be a whole different story, so let's not get started there just yet, but they have the pieces. If we can get some consistency, if we can get a little bit more just sense of urgency, maybe I'll say at times, I feel like that's a little bit of what this team's missing. But Johnny said something I do agree with. SMU was not a better team. We were a better team than SMU. I think that's pretty clear. But and we come out with the win. I haven't seen too many teams that I looked at outside of maybe Houston and I don't even know Memphis that I look at and say this team is just flat out better than us. For the games we've lost, Trace, I don't know if you disagree with this. A lot of them we've done to ourselves, right? We've shot ourselves in the foot. We've made some silly penalties or fouls, mistakes, whatever. We haven't been the sharpest team. Houston, really the only team that you look at and go, okay, they're head and shoulders better than us. But we can play with anybody if we're prepared, if we're ready, if we're motivated, if we're on our game. But you just don't know week to week, game to game, if we're actually going to be that team at that point in time.
Well, certainly Houston's the class in this league, and Tulsa the doormat in this league, and then kind of everybody in between, right? Maybe not SMU on most nights, but everybody else is kind of bunched up. You could say, and I know it's a point that Mike likes to make when fans say, well, they lost so many games close. They also won games close, right? So there's opportunity there with Memphis that they could have won both of those games.
Yeah.
They could have also, right, lost both of those games,
yeah, for sure.
And so there's a lot of those, even in the wins, they were close wins. The talent is there. In this game, UCF just 0 of 2 from the free throw line in the first half. They got to the line a lot more in the second half, finishing 12 of 16. So that's something else to look to here. Interesting in this one, Taylor Hendricks with 15 points, 10 in the first half. So he cooled a little bit in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, I was curious to see. Obviously, I think we'll talk about this at some point in the rundown. He was snubbed this week for the American Conference Freshman of the Year, even though he won the weekly award 9 times. So I think there was some hope from a lot of us that he would come out with a little bit of fire, a little bit of attitude, a little bit of edge to him, and you saw that in the first half. Again, he's kind of done this in spots though, Trace, this year. He's disappeared for stretches of time offensively. And I don't know if it's because we're not running plays for him or just the way the offense is running, but he's disappeared for stretches of time. But he's still obviously a solid player. And I think, his best basketball is in front of us, right? I think he has the ability to have his best basketball in front of us. What better time to do it now and in a conference seating like this, in a setting where he has the ability to go out with what we all assume may be his last times in a UCF uniform, go out at least with a bang and try to get us to that championship game on Sunday.
You mentioned that not the AAC Freshman of the Year, in spite of winning 9 times a record, AAC
crazy.
Freshman of the Week. He's, of course, on the all-freshman team, second team all-conference. He was asked about it, and he handled it as he has throughout the year. I'll tell you, it's something that I noticed in preseason and the media day. He's very composed. He handles himself well. You don't sense he's nervous on camera or at the mic. Now he's a little robotic in his answers, and it's hard to shake him and get much out of him beyond they need to play the type of defense that they expect to play, and those sound bites that you hear from him. But he took that in stride and said, the winner deserving. Either way it would have gone. It would have been fair, and that he knows he's had a good season. So he handled himself well in being asked that question in the postgame.
Yeah, I don't understand the voting. I think this is a situation where the voters just voted for the name on the front of the jersey, right? They saw Houston and said, "Oh, Houston's a great team." So, I
They
think they
swept all
swept
the
all
awards.
6 awards, right? So, I
Yeah.
think it's something they just looked at the front of the jersey versus the back of the jersey. I think, not that Walker is not a great player, but I think, each week, the conference is saying that, Taylor Hendricks is the best player. So that I just assume that's, just the ability for the coaches to go, oh well, Houston's the best team, so let me just vote everybody from Houston. That was ridiculous. But again, we still have a little bit of run here with Taylor. So I think I saw Dolly had a comment that he saw a little bit of dog in Hendricks, right? And I think that's the part we want to see, right? He's, to your point, he's a very nice kid. It seems like a really mature, well put together kid. At some point, we do want to see him. Does he have that streak where he's going to just take over and put the team on his back? It's a lot to ask a true freshman, but if there's ever a time to do it, this could be the time. So, I mean, I hate to, continue to drink the hopium on this one, but I mean, there's cautious optimism. To your point, UCF and Memphis were one play here, one play there, and that's kind of been UCF's season outside of Memphis, or outside of Houston, rather. I think, particularly with Memphis, we win these games in the margins, right? It's a block charge call, it's a rebound at the end, it's taking a foul, it's making free throws. That's where we're going to win these games in the margins. Hopefully, UCF has the ability to do that again when we play Memphis for the third time on Friday. But again, from game to game, I couldn't tell you what to expect from this basketball team.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Memphis. By the way, one more statistic. I want to credit Christian Simmons for this one. He posted on his Twitter after the game. Just the 14th time in the last 40 years, the Knights have won 18 or more games in a season, and 5 of those times have come under Johnny Dawkins. So if they hope to get to a 19th, they're going to have to beat Memphis. Last 3 outs, all been at the hands of Memphis. And if I'm not mistaken, UCF has never won more than 1 game in the conference tournament while being
Correct.
a part of the Americans. So we know what the task is there. It was a heck of a game. Most exciting game of the year was that double overtime 107-104 win by UCF in Orlando. And in that one, Kendrick Davis with 42 points. Now, UCF, this is a seize the moment there. We're at Memphis. Remember, he turned his ankle and he left that game early. And UCF had that one. Until they turned the ball over with a few seconds remaining in the game. And, Dolly's comment made me think of something. It's been kind of a reoccurring theme on your podcast where you're talking to the nicest guy in the world, Anthony Montalvo. And, right, you're talking about who's our top 5. Who's our top? Johnny Dawkins is a nice guy, and Taylor Hendricks is a nice guy. And Dolly used that phrase, a little bit of dog in him. Maybe we need to see some more of that flash there of not anger, but seizing the game. And as you said, it's hard for a true freshman to carry the team, but God, you just got to keep feeding him the ball. Today, Ithiel Horton, cold shooting. He couldn't hit anything, and CJ Kelly really carried him, and Darius Johnson got lost, especially in that second half.
Yeah, Ithiel has not shot the ball well on the road. Hopefully playing one game, today, and he's got familiarity for tomorrow's game. Maybe that'll help a little bit because he has not shot the ball well on the road. But look, as a true freshman, you can tell at times that Taylor's a little deferential to some of his teammates. You know what I mean? And I think to your point, this could be the opportunity to put the team on his back, to make the plays, be more aggressive offensively. He's always super aggressive defensively, but be more aggressive offensively. But even that Memphis game, going back to that for a second, Trace, obviously we have the late turnover. We still had a shot at the rim, at the buzzer, right? Now there was contact, could have been a foul, right? But we got all the way back down the court, still had a shot at the rim to win that one. So this has been a really tight matchup this year. So, again, I don't know what to expect in this one, but I would love to see a Taylor Hendricks breakout game. I'd love to see a nice little 30-point, 15-rebound kind of performance out of Taylor Hendricks tomorrow. That would be, as Dolly says, getting the dog out. That would be bringing the dog out if I can get 30 to 15 out of Taylor tomorrow.
So I kind of thought ahead in the show rundown this week and said, all right, so if UCF beats SMU, they're going to play Memphis. So I reached out to the beat writer for the Daily Memphian, who we anticipated being with us live. And then he messaged me late in the afternoon saying he's got flight delays and now he's going to be on the plane and not able to join us live. So we scrambled and I was able to interview him over Zoom prior to him heading off to the airport. So he's going to give us a little bit more on the Memphis Tigers season and, what the Knights look to face on Friday night.
Now move on to face the Memphis Tigers, which they split a pair of games during the season. Let's learn a little bit more about the Tigers and bring in our first guest of the evening. He is Parth Upathiyai, a Memphis Tiger beat writer for the Daily Memphian. Parth, thanks for being with us on Sons of UCF Live.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, let's talk about the Tigers. 23 wins on the season, 13-5, second seed. How would you capsulize the season as a whole?
Yeah, I think if you had asked most Tigers fans before the season, right? You present these numbers, you say, hey, they're 24-8, 13-5 in conference. I think everybody in the city of Memphis, or most folks, would have taken that, right? Given this roster, given the fact that there's not, 5 stars, there's not James Wiseman, Jalen Duren, there's not those kinds of players on this team. Granted, you've got Kendrick Davis, but you've got a whole lot of, guys who were role players last year at different conferences, different teams. I would say that the non-conference kind of set high expectations. You go through SEC teams, you're 4-1 with the only loss in the SEC to Alabama, at Alabama by 3 points. And then they stumbled a little bit, right? They had that double overtime loss at UCF. They got swept by Tulane. You lose close ones to Houston twice. I think that has been a little bit of a disappointment, but they've definitely kind of regained ground and have momentum heading into Fort Worth.
Yeah, let's talk about those 2 games with UCF. Tale of 2 different games. Kendrick Davis, the big standout and star in that double overtime game, a win by UCF in Orlando. And then he left the game early in Memphis. It's a game UCF really was in a position to steal, and they let get away there in the final seconds.
Absolutely. I think, that game just flipped right on its head. As soon as Kendrick Davis went out with that ankle injury late in the first half, the Tigers turned the ball over, I think, 16 times in that second half. They didn't have a point guard out there. And UCF is one of the better teams in the country, in my opinion, at turning teams over. I believe they're in the top 50 in forced turnover. So that's kind of where they thrive, despite the ups and downs in the night season. And you saw them take full advantage. Obviously couldn't seal the deal there in Memphis, but you saw that gap close very quickly from being down 15 for the Knights to, I think they led, if I'm not mistaken, that last 5 minutes for a little bit there.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier you didn't see stars on this team beyond Kendrick Davis, but DeAndre Williams, first team all conference along with Davis.
Absolutely. I think what I meant by that is like the kind of stereotypical NBA lottery pick type guys that Penny Hardaway's gotten year after year, seemingly, whether it be Precious Achiuwa or James Wiseman or Jalen Duren, that list kind of, Imani Bates, the list kind of goes on and on. Whereas this year he tried a completely different model. He ripped that in half and said, hey, these 17, 18-year-olds are at times causing too much drama, and it's hard to, kind of massage and balance these personalities. Let's go get Kendrick Davis, obviously a star. We got DeAndre Williams, who we hope will take the next step, and he has. And then let's build around them with a bunch of role players. We don't know if it'll work or not, but let's go get some veterans who are going to be more mature, going to kind of have this one unified goal of getting back to the NCAA tournament. And lucky for them, it seems to have worked out.
Yeah, you have an article now at the Daily Memphian on Malcolm Dandridge. You call him an X factor. Talk a little bit more about what fans watching for UCF could expect to see from him Friday night.
Yeah, I think obviously those are Penny's words, X factor, and I have to agree a little bit at least. I think, when he was out, the defense in its entirety suffered, right? The Tigers defense suffered, and that's not to say that Malcolm Dandridge is, Shaquille O'Neal, right, in the paint, because he's not. He's a guy who scores 6 points a game, grabs 4-point-something rebounds a game. But his mere presence, at 6'9", 260, just being there in the middle, that deters, opponents from going in the paint. That then keeps DeAndre Williams out of foul trouble, because when DeAndre's at the 5, he's not the best rim protector and gets into foul trouble often. It kind of helps everything else. It helps the Tigers grab rebounds. So all of a sudden you got another guy boxing another guy out. So I think those type of things is what Penny Hardaway is alluding to when he says Malcolm Dandridge is an X factor. Not necessarily direct impact, but just having his sheer presence out there.
What's the health of this team going into this American Athletic Conference championship in Fort Worth?
Yeah, they're fairly healthy. Keontae Kennedy was ruled out for the remainder of the regular season before that Wichita State game a couple weeks ago. He punched a wall. He punched a brick wall after the Houston loss out of frustration. It is unclear whether that frustration came from the Houston loss or from his own performance or from, personal matters, whatever it may be. He went to go see a doctor on Tuesday, And Penny had mentioned that he's not going to be playing in the AAC tournament, NCAA tournament. If they should, if they make it, that's kind of up in the air. So that's really the only hit. They've got Malcolm Dandridge back. They've got Alex Lomax back. I'm sure you recall, Lomax going out in the first overtime of that UCF game in Orlando with a groin strain. So they've got their best on-ball defender back. They've got their big man, like we mentioned, Dandridge. And Kendrick Davis seems to be slowly coming back to form after that ankle sprain there. So I'd say, yeah, they're almost at full strength. Yes.
You mentioned Houston there. They had a couple of shots at the Cougars in the last couple of weeks of the conference slate. Close, but just couldn't get over the hump.
Yeah, no doubt. I think, in that first game, I think both games actually similar themes, right? In different ways, but you put yourself in these holes and then you wake up in the second half and, against a team like Houston, you're not going to be able to just kind of, flip the switch and, pull off a victory. They almost did so in Memphis, on Sunday, but ultimately they couldn't get it done. You put yourself in a 11-point hole early in the first half. You allow them to shoot 7 threes in the first 20 minutes. This is not going to go well for you ultimately, especially against a team like Houston, who, is not the best 3-point shooting team, is not the most fast-paced, offensively flashy team. Now you're allowing them to kind of broaden their, offensive repertoire even more, right? And that ends up putting you in holes that can be insurmountable at times.
So with Houston leaving for the Big 12, along with Cincinnati and UCF, opportunity here for Memphis to really seize control of the American and be a dominant force in basketball.
Certainly. I mean, you would hope, if you're a Memphis fan, you would hope they seize it. You've got FAU coming in, who's respectable, had a great year this year. You got North Texas. So you've got certain teams that, could give you a run for your money if you're not careful. But I think in a way that, not in a way directly, that shortens the margin for error for Memphis. You can't go out and, lose 3 games in conference play, or you're not going to get in that large bid, quite frankly. And you've got to earn that national respect, you got to take care of business. You got to almost be perfect, in next year's AAC, in my opinion.
What's the mood amongst the fans and the program, seeing the departures and all the upheaval now with the American teams moving on to the Big 12 and Memphis not part of that? Rumored, of course, in all of the different expansion and realignment talks. What's the mood? How would you describe that right now? Do they feel kind of like left out of the party?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's not been a huge talking point as of late, just because, people are focused on the here and now and the season and what can be, come Fort Worth and come NCAA tournament time. But definitely in the thick of those talks, when it kind of became finalized that these teams were departing, it's kind of one of those things like, hey, what about us? What about this city and what about this passionate fan base that, really, really cares about these Tigers, despite the Grizzlies being in town and despite it's not being your, traditional college town. The passion is just as much as, anywhere else in the country, quite frankly. So I think that's where they look at it like, hey, we're not bringing in that football money, which is obviously the big revenue driver in college athletics, but, we're showing up for our Tigers in basketball and, we're a team that really cares and we're, in their perspective, we're a team that really, can move the needle and have shown to in terms of recruiting, in terms of national attention and prestige. So I think that's kind of where the aggravation comes in if you're a Tigers fan.
All right, we'll wrap up with this. Memphis, for them to win this game, what has to go right for the Tigers on Friday night against UCF?
Yeah, they can't turn the ball over. I think, once again, we talked about UCF being, and I don't know if you would agree with this, but UCF through the ups and downs being a team that, can turn you over. I think they average 15 or something forced turnovers a game. You can kind of look that up, or don't quote me on that rather, but for the Tigers to win, they can't turn the ball over more than 13 or 14 times. And you've got to be able to guard the perimeter. UCF isn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination at shooting threes, but they chuck them up just as much as anybody. I think they shoot around 24, 25, 26 threes a game, if I'm not mistaken. And if you're Memphis, you've had trouble guarding the perimeter. That could kind of be a game changer if you're not hitting them on the other end, if you're the Tigers. So I think those are the 2 categories that I'll be looking at, certainly.
And if you could share your social media so folks can follow you and keep up with you during the game.
Absolutely. My Twitter handle is at @PUPADHYAYA_. That is a mouthful. So I'll say it again. That is at my last name, UPADHYAYA_.
How'd I do with the pronunciation off the top?
Man, that was pretty good. that was pretty good. I think, I know you were practicing before we kind of started recording here. So if that's your 4th attempt, man, that's not bad. Most people don't get it on the 4th try. So.
I appreciate you carving out some time amidst the schedule. And
I'm not saying it again, though, Adam.
I got to say, Trace, that's one of my better interviews.
I think what was interesting there is what he said about turnovers. Can the Knights force those turnovers? We have already dissected throughout this season what UCF could do, should do, you hope to do, but can they force turnovers and, keep Memphis on its heels?
Yeah, look, it'll be a tight game. When these two teams have played so far, it's obviously come down to the wire both times. I think this one will be one of the margins, right? Who can get a hand on a ball in the passing lane and get a tip pass and get a steal, and who can get a block shot. My sense between these two teams is pretty evenly matched. I think they both have dynamic players on the offensive side that you keep those folks under control, you have a chance to win the game. I think it'll be in the margin. So check rebounding, check, free throw percentage, check, charge, steals, blocks. I think you check the margins, and that should portend to who will win the game tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night, 7:00. Winner of that game faces the winner of Wichita. Wichita's beating Tulsa, so likely Wichita State against Tulane. And UCF had a close one at Tulane in their only matchup of the season. So if things go well, what did you use the term? Hopium. We've got that for at least 24 hours, and then we'll see where it goes. My friend John Weiss is preparing an article that he'll have out to us shortly, and I'll send it over to you, Adam, to post on twonightsmedia.com, digging a little bit more into the Memphis Tigers. So I want to thank Parth for joining us, and have safe travels to Fort Worth. So a little bit of football news that just dropped from UCF football's Twitter account, that they have hired Jackson Holliday as a grad assistant on offense, and Eugene Fuller, a grad assistant on defense. Holloway follows Darren Hinshaw from UAB. Fuller comes from Fairmont State in West Virginia. So a couple of additions to Coach Malzahn's staff. And spring camp getting underway in a little more than a week. Coming up on the 20th is the first day of practice, when they'll stretch for the cameras for a few moments. Hoping that next Thursday on Sons of UCF Live, we'll be able to dig in a little bit more on some of the questions going into spring camp. Have a guest to talk about that. So that's something that we will be planning for next week. You guys had another nice guy on the show this week in one Landon Woodson.
Yeah, really nice guy, and he has an interesting story for those who don't know much about Landon's story. He got injured in fall camp, and Coach Malzahn offered him an opportunity to kind of stay on the team in a bit of a support role. He wouldn't be playing anymore, obviously, but he kind of have an off the field role, and I thought it was really interesting to hear him describe what that role looks like. And again, put yourself in the shoes of an athlete. You've done that in your entire life, and all of a sudden now that's all over, and what do you do next? I thought his response, his maturity to what kind of happened to him, I thought was really great. So here's a clip from that conversation.
Basically, just be there for them. A mentor, show the younger kids the ropes. I had a lot of freshmen on my side, like Jamal Johnson, KT Thomas. Those were the two new DNs. And really just put them under my wing and show them the ropes of how school worked, how the football worked, help them with plays, because this is, I don't know. It's just, it was a great role because I was able to, still have my locker, still be able to, travel with the team, basically a GA, basically just there helping the team where I can, when I can.
Again, a really impressive young man who obviously his time at UCF got cut short from injury, but he was there from 2018 to 2022. A lot of interesting conversation, a lot of interesting stories about the coaching changes and what he experienced too. So wherever you get downloadable content, you can find that one also on our YouTube channel. Just search at Sons of UCF, and you'll hear more from Landon and Anthony Montalvo and Daryl Mack and Ryan Swoboda and a cast of thousands out there on the pod feed or on the YouTube channel.
Did you know that according to Dolly Drama, Commissioner of the Big 12, Brett Yormark, has now subscribed to the Sons of UCF YouTube channel? That's what Dolly's reporting on his Twitter.
I have a quick story. Sorry. So I was at the Players Golf Tournament all day today, right? I was actually wearing this exact same hat I have in my head right now. I'm sitting against the bleachers on 17, having a good time, enjoying myself. Some guy walks by and goes, "Hey, Sons of UCF, I love you guys." So I'm not surprised to hear that Brett Yormark is a fan of ours as well.
When I was heading back from Tallahassee today, stopped in Gainesville, had lunch with a friend, and he said, is there some significance to you guys hitting 1,000? It's pride. We're driven. Other than that, it's just a number. I promised to pipe down about it. There'll be another number, 1,500 maybe, or 1,250. If we ever get to 1,000. Yeah. Let's switch gears now. Talk a little baseball. Midweek win for the Knights. They beat North Florida 10-3. We'll talk to our next guest about Dom Stagliano. He picked up the win, 2-0 now. He had a good outing. Tom Jostin really had a good outing. A grand slam, 2 home runs, 6 RBIs. And what was important is the Knights got off the schneid there after losing 2, giving up a lot of runs on Saturday and Sunday to Georgia Southern. And head coach Greg Lovelady told Leo following the game about bouncing back.
I mean, it's just good to see the guys get out there, throw well, but it just shows how important starting pitching is. When he sets the tone like that, gives our offense a chance, as potent as our offense is, and just, keep the game close. Like, that's all you need, and then we're going to put up some bunches of runs. So,
bunches of runs indeed. Let's welcome in Stephen Branca, a former Knight and part of the broadcast team on ESPN+. Stephen, hello. How are you?
Good. How you guys doing?
Doing well. Good to see you. Knights bounce back. Let's go. Good to get the midweek win, but let's talk about the weekend. 11 runs in that first inning against Georgia Southern, 19-7 loss, and then they gave up a bunch. What? You were part of that broadcast crew. What happened?
We started talking about random facts a lot sooner than we wanted to. It was one of those nights that Mark and I are sitting there and we ended up talking about bubble gum and lollipops or something like by the second inning. So it was tough to watch. It looked like Georgia Southern's a really good hitting team as it is. They don't hit for a ton of power. First baseman Ledford, he had some juice, but outside of that, they're really good contact hitting team, and that's what they teach. They teach that type of swing path. They're just trying to find the barrel, put the ball in play, and make things happen. And they did just that. They found holes all over the place. I think it wasn't until like the third inning or something like that they had a hit that was like actually in a gap somewhere. And so they looked like they knew what was coming. They definitely had something to where they were just squaring up everything they could and finding hits left and right.
Well, Ben Vespi didn't start the season with the Knights, and then he got a win at Clemson, and then he moved into the Saturday slot, and he didn't make it out of the first inning. And I saw today in releasing the weekend rotation, they've got TBD on Saturday.
Yeah, I know no information at this point. I'd be surprised if they didn't go back to Vespi after throwing less than an inning. It's one outing. You saw what the kid could do last year. It's first time back in live action. So I expect to see him back out there, but who knows? They got to win games at this point. And this Troy team that's coming into town is a really good team. So,
Stephen, can we talk about Tom Jostin for a second? Is the baseball just looking like a beach ball to him up there right now? What is he doing so well? I mean, he's just on a tear right now. Can you describe as a hitter what that experience is like?
Yeah, it definitely looks like a beach ball. It looks like it's slow motion. Everything that's coming out of the pitcher's hand, you're seeing really, really well. I think part of his success so far is his mentality. I think has changed a little bit. In the past, he wasn't a 6-year senior, about 27 years old like he is now, and so he was focused on the draft and really putting a lot of pressure on himself trying to get drafted. And now it's kind of focused. It's shifted now. It's all right. How good can I be to help our team win, more so than what do I have to do to get drafted? And I think it's a mentality change that he's had to where now he's able to just play, have fun, and really just try to win games. And so when your effort changes and your mentality changes like that, it's a big deal. And so we're seeing a guy that's playing free, having fun, and like you said, the ball's coming in about this big, and he's just not missing at this point.
Let's talk about some of the new guys, some of the young guys. Who are the guys that are really impressing you? Obviously, a couple weeks into the season now, we've seen some consistency out of some of the freshmen or new guys. Who are a couple names out there that are really sort of impressive to you in terms of what you've seen so far?
Drew Farreau is the real deal. Watching that kid at shortstop it's wow. I expected him to be good. I didn't expect him to be this good, especially this early. And so it was impressive to see him from both sides of the plate too, having the success that he's having, and as well as out in the field. I didn't think he'd be as good as he has been out in the field. I think he's only made an error or two so far, and for a freshman shortstop, I mean that's tough to do. You get a lot of balls out there, but he is just playing amazing right now. And I talk to every freshman before the season starts, and I always tell them, because it's true, you got to know that you belong, and he knows that he belongs. And so that's just something I try to leave all the freshmen with, because it's really hard playing this game of failure. It's baseball, but it's failure. I mean, you fail as a position player more times than not. And so to have that confidence and that understanding that somebody believes in me, I believe in myself, he's doing that right now. And he's a very, very, very good player.
Speaking of confidence, John Rice Plumlee sure has a lot of it. Let's go through Friday. Late in the game, he saw a moment there, and instincts kicked in, and he went for it. I was close. I saw that replay. It seemed pretty close, but that really set things in motion there late.
Yeah, it was. I actually talked to him after the game, and I said that was a ballsy move. That was a dumb but ballsy move, but it worked. It's insane to see. He plays like his hair is on fire, right? And you're never going to take that away from him. So you got to take the good with the bad with him, right? He's a great athlete, but he's going to go out there and he's going to play like his hair is on fire. He's going to try to take the extra base. He's going to try to steal in situations that it's definitely not necessary. But you know what? Like, he's playing hard. He's playing the game the way he knows how. I think if he lets off any of it, he gets worse. And so, like I said, you just take the good with the bad from him right now. And it worked out the other night, which is awesome. And there's situations where it's gonna bite some people in the butt if he does it in the wrong situation. So trying to get him under control and understanding some of those situations is going to be huge. But like I said, you'll take the good with the bad, because it's been much better than it has been on the worst side. So
he's been a little inconsistent defensively too. He lost a ball over the weekend, and then he had that moment where he didn't hit the cutoff man and tried to make a play at third, and that didn't work.
Yeah, it's he's getting back into game shape, even mentally, and what
are you channeling your inner Gus Malzahn now? He hadn't played in a while.
He hasn't played in a while, and I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt when it comes down to it, because he is a really talented player in a lot of ways. He does miss the cutoff man too often. He's trying to show off the hose every now and then, and needs to put a nozzle on it. And there's
it's good advice in a lot of situations, Steven.
Yeah, exactly. And so try to get him under control in some of those situations. And I think he'll get there. It's early. This is still his kind of fault, right? When you think about it, it's him getting in rhythm with the guys, and he's figuring it all out. And I'm just hoping it gets better in the near future. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens when spring practice starts. The physical appearance of John Rice Plumlee, what that's going to look like, because he's going to be practicing in the morning and then trying to play games in the evening. And he is the best athlete on the field when he plays, but we'll see what it looks like.
Do you confer with Coach Malzahn on this, or are there talking points that come out from athletics about getting used to things, and he hasn't played in a while?
There's just they give us a script, so.
Steven, I feel like this may sound like a dumb question, so I apologize in advance, but How hard is it to play these midweek series? When you're only playing a team for one game, they're in, they're out, then you got to get focused on the weekend series coming up. How hard is it for a team to get focused on that one game midweek, midweek series, week in and week out, when you don't have a ton of time to prepare, and maybe you don't have a ton of film that you're going to watch to kind of get yourself ready for it?
Usually UCF at this point, the way they're swinging the bats, they'll be on the better side of these midweek games, because it usually comes down to hitting. When it comes down to it, you're looking at a team's fourth or fifth best starter when it comes to a midweek game, because they're doing everything they can to win a weekend series. And so it's going to come down to offense. And so UCF's going to be on the good side of some of these, because their offense has been fantastic. I mean, you even look back to the games they lost against Georgia Southern. I mean, if you would have told me that they put up that amount of runs in all those games and they lost 2 out of 3, I'd be shocked. And so midweek games are tough only because you used as much as your pitching as you can on the weekend. And so you're just trying to hit your way through it at this point.
Yeah, I want to go back to pitching for a second. After the game, Coach Lovelady told Leo that he was going to essentially evaluate his pitching staff, and he said, "I'm going to go back, I'm going to watch the film, and I'll make some decisions." Take us behind the curtain a little bit as a coach. What kind of things do you think Coach Lovelady is looking for when he's going back and reviewing film? What kind of things do you think he's trying to determine as he thinks about how he sets his rotation?
Yeah, he's going to go back and he's going to look at first pitch strike. That's a huge stat that coaches like to see. We saw that at Dom Stagliano on Tuesday. He was at well over 70%, I think it was, on first pitch strike. If you're getting ahead of hitters, that's a huge sign. A lot of guys don't go in there swinging first pitch, and if they do, they're swinging and missing. And so if you could just pound the zone first pitch, that's what they're looking for. But also, he wants to go see mechanically if guys are in sync. Is Ben Vespi in sync right now with who he is as a pitcher, and just trying to figure out if he's ready, if he's feeling healthy, if he's just saying he's healthy. There's things like that they'll look at as well. But I think in the end, there's just some mechanical things that they're going to look at with those guys, Vespi, Leiter, the guys that kind of struggled on the weekend, and see where they're at. Make sure that they're in a good spot, because the last thing you want to do is throw them out there with something out of whack, and then eventually an injury comes from that. And so they're going to go back and make sure they keep their guys safe, keep them healthy, but also try to get them back on track at the same time and not throw them out there in a situation they're not ready for. So if they're not linked up the way they should be mechanically, they're going to save them from injury and save them from failure and find somebody else to put in that spot until they get them right.
After Saturday's loss, Coach Lovelady said he wanted to go back and look to see if Ben Vespi was perhaps tipping pitches. Explain that to us.
Yeah, so a lot of times, guys, this is something I know pretty well. So guys will hold the ball in their glove a certain way. Most of the time on an off-speed pitch, say a changeup, you'll see the glove start to widen because they have to get a grip around that ball a little bit more so than they have to just get behind it on the fastball or the slider. Glove angles will change. Arm angles will change based on how they're getting in there to grip the ball. So there's just different things that you can look at. So if I have to get around a ball and I'm turning, you'll see your arm starts to move out. Guys will see that type of thing, or your glove starts to widen, glove position changes. I mean, this is something that when I was a part of staff, honestly, I would go back and watch film of pitchers, and I would take a picture of what their set position looked like for a fastball and what their set position would look like for a breaking ball. And I would line them up side by side. And it was like that picture that you did when you were a kid. What's different between the two pictures? Find the 5 differences, right? And so you just go through and you say, all right, this is what looks different to me here and here, and make sure it's consistent. And, you go from there.
A couple of sound bites want to play, Adam, from Tom Jostin and Dom Stagliano, the pitcher, on what they hope to do this coming weekend against Troy.
Obviously, we hope to win every game. That's a team goal. Myself, any way I can help the team win. That's the biggest thing, regardless of the role I come in, is just winning the game. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, we just got to play complete games. We got to put it together all on the same day. It doesn't matter if we score a lot of runs or little runs. We got to score more than the other team. So we just got to play good baseball, keep playing well. I think we're heading in the right direction. I'm confident with our team, so just got to play good ball.
What do you like about Dom Stagliano? 6 innings, 3 hits, 1 run, 1 earned, 2K, 60 pitches. Pretty efficient outing.
Yeah, he was mixing really well, and he was down in the zone. He wasn't afraid to throw any of his pitches in any count. He would start guys off with the breaking ball. He started them off with a changeup, start them off with a fastball. It didn't matter what count it was. He was confident throwing all 3 pitches, and he was throwing them all for strikes. And so he was just in there competing against guys. And that's what he does really, really well, is he mixes his pitches and competes, because he's not going to – you don't see the radar gun lighting up at 95 when he gets up there, but he is a guy that's got 3 quality pitches on him. And he goes in there and he throws them for strikes, and he competes. He really wants to win. As you heard him say, I mean, we're trying to win, and he really wants that. He's a hungry type of guy. He's got a lot of fire to him. And so he doesn't show that emotion on the mound, but it's in him, and he shows it through his pitching. So,
Steven, we saw obviously the Clemson series. There was some talk afterwards about UCF's celebrations, right? And some of the things they did. There was a social media post after the Georgia Southern game about UCF doing the same thing. As someone who's played baseball your entire life, do you have any problem with the way the UCF team sort of celebrates and kind of roots each other on? Do you see any issue with what you're seeing that team do?
No. Look, here's the thing is, all right, I want to preface this first. If you don't like it, play better, right? If you don't want somebody to do it to you, then play better. If I hit a home run that goes 500 feet, I'm going to flip my bat and I'm going to watch it for a second because I did my job. I did what I was supposed to do, right? You lost, I won this battle, and now we move on. And so if you don't like it, play better. But also, why do we have to go back to this gentleman's game and this old school tendency where you can't show any emotion when you play and all that? Like, no, I want to see guys fired up. I want to see them celebrate when they get a double. I want to see them celebrate when they strike somebody out to end the inning. Like, I want to see that emotion because it means it matters to you. It means it matters to you. It doesn't mean, oh, act like you've been there before. Yeah, I have been there before, and I just did it again to you. Like, that's what I want to see. I want to see guys who play with passion, play with heart, and really, like, that's what college athletics is about, right? Like, it's the passion because, I mean, before NIL, there was no money involved. And so, like, this is what you had. It was pride. It was about the logo that you're wearing on your chest, right? It's just that pride and that emotion. And that's what I love about college athletics is you have a sense of pride and a sense of family in that dugout that it's like, you know, this is what it's all about. And you play 56 games, you get one run at it. And you know what? Like, you're giving it everything you got. Like, show that emotion. I got nothing wrong with it.
Of course, that cuts both ways because Georgia Southern dropped a couple of booms on Saturday and Sunday in their wins over UCF.
And they could do that. Absolutely. You hit a ball out of the ballpark and you want to mimic what we do because you're jealous. Go ahead, do it. Like, that's fine. You know what I mean? You don't have your own thing. So, but it's not against them. It's just like, I get it. Okay, great. You want to rub it in our face. Now you did that. Great. Come up with your own thing. But at the same time, like, we lost that. So what? Like, you don't like it, play better. It's really simple, right? If I'm playing to the best of my ability and I want to show some emotion, I can do that. You can't say anything about it. You don't like it, it's because you're not up to my level.
Troy this weekend, 6-4-1, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Florida State midweek for a pair on Tuesday at 6 and Wednesday at 4. What do you think out of this next 5 games that you want to see from the Knights?
They got a tough test ahead of them. I mean, it's going to be tough. I mean, I was watching film on the starters that they got throwing. They got some good pitchers that are going to pitch the first couple of days, Friday, Saturday. The guy on Saturday is 93 to 95 with his fastball. Big old kid at like 6'5" or whatever he is. And they got guys. I mean, I think they had about 30 homers or something going in the year, going into the series, just like UCF does. So offensively, they swing it too. It's going to be a tough test. So they're going to have to be firing on all cylinders. They're going to have to be able to pitch like they can and like they, kind of promoted in the fall, like this is what we have. And they're going to have to keep hitting the way that they're hitting. But I think it's whoever pitches best is going to get it done because both offenses are on fire right now.
I hope you don't need it because UCF's taking care of business. But if there's an 11-run outburst, you need some useless party trivia. Come to the Sons of UCF. There's all sorts of little miscellaneous factoids. Adam and Mike are doing movie reviews on their show now. 30-year-old movies they're reviewing. So, what was your favorite baseball movie? Steve?
Oh, man. I always grew up watching Bull Durham, so that was probably the most realistic when it came to what minor league baseball is actually like. But then I do like, man, there's a couple that are good, but I'm going to stick with Bull Durham. It's probably the best.
One more question for you. What do you think of this pitch clock that Major League Baseball is experimenting with here in spring training?
I think it's
I guess it's coming over into the season too, right?
Yeah, it's going to come over into everywhere. And, I think it's just going to happen in too many big situations where obviously they're going to adapt and they'll figure it out. But like, how much time is it really taking off of watching a baseball game? And here's the thing is if you don't like it at 3.5 hours, you're not going to watch it at 2:45 either, so it really doesn't make any difference. Just let them play the game. And I see guys like Max Scherzer trying to manipulate it a little bit, and he's standing on the mound until the guy steps out, and the second he steps back in, he's throwing it, and but then he gave up like 11 runs or something like that after whatever it was. So it doesn't make any difference. Just let them play and watch them at their best, and just let them go.
Bubblegum Lollipops and Steven Branca. Catch them on ESPN Plus over the weekend. Steven, thanks for being with us on Suns Live.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks, David.
Talk to you again. Softball drops a midweek, 3-0 at number 8 Florida. They're 10-13 overall. Of course, they've had a lot of road trips. They've been out west and they played a lot of tough teams, but they've been inconsistent, especially with pitching. Get a good pitching outing, and then they don't get any runs. They're back home. They got Toledo, Kennesaw State, North Dakota, and then a pair with Rutgers midweek. So chance to get back over on the right side of things and maybe creep back into the rankings. Let's go around the kingdom before we unleash some hot takes. Women's basketball, their season ended. They lost 48-46 second round. They had upset Tulsa 69-53 in the first round. They let this one get away too. They finished 14-15. A lot of these games they led half, third quarter. So Satia Mester's first season, 14-15 in a rebuilding situation with Coach Abe, and moving on to Georgia. Volleyball has announced its European tour. And where do they find the money for this one, I wonder, as we talk about resources?
Never getting that lazy river, Trace.
Yeah. Czech Republic, Slovenia, Hungary, Italy, June 7th through 18th. That's a little bit better than Lubbock and Waco and Manhattan, where they will travel to in the fall. So a little bonding in the post-McKenna Melville era. And good luck to Junior Renai Jones, NCAA Division I Indoor Track and Field Championships this weekend in Albuquerque. She is competing in the 60-meter hurdles. So good luck to her, and she represents UCF very well. All right, hot takes. Fire up the
hot take time, Trace.
fireplace.
Hot take time. Here we go. Hot take time. Number 1, JP Gilbert. The Warren Commission got it wrong, Trace. I know. Do you think this is a hot take, or do you agree with this take?
No, I do not subscribe to his brand of paranoia.
This doesn't mean they didn't get it wrong, though. I mean, there's a lot of things to consider. I talked about on the show this week how I've always wanted to go to Dallas to visit that particular site. I have not yet had a chance to go there. It could mean they got something wrong, Trace. I mean,
I will tell you, I've been to Daily Plaza, and when you go up in that book depository, I didn't expect that sound effect at that. When you go up in that book depository, you can stand right where allegedly Lee Harvey Oswald stood. And
whoa, what do you mean allegedly? He wasn't there?
Well, I don't know. It depends. JP. By the way, JP analyzed a screenshot today of men's basketball on the dry erase board.
That was good. That was good.
So he's trying to decipher what it says on there. So
the only answer I had with this on the pod this week, Mike talked about his experience going there, and he said he went up to the window and he said, "That's an easy shot. Anybody could have made that one." So I don't know. Do with that what you will. I'm not sure if that means the Warren Commission is.
What was the movie review this week, by the way? I forget. What was
Jerry Maguire.
Jerry Maguire. Yeah. When you announced that you were doing that, I got to tell you, I don't know why. I've been listening to you guys for years. I don't know why that I thought you were going to watch the movie in the week and then review it when you record.
Silly choice. Yeah.
Instead, the two of you were trying to remember lines and plot points from movies that you maybe saw 10 years ago.
Mike can't even make it to the show, Trace. You think I'm going to get him to spend 2 hours watching Fuel the Dreams on a Thursday? That's not going to work out. All right. 2 letters, 2 words. UCF basketball will advance past the second round of the conference tournament. Obviously, right now we are in round 1. We've gone to the second round. So Robert, I guess, portends that we will beat Memphis. Trace, is this a good hot take or a bad hot take?
I think it's a great hot take. I don't necessarily think it's going to happen, but I think it's a great hot take, which goes next with the next one too.
You're predicting a loss.
I see no reason to expect them to do differently than what we've seen throughout the year. I'm sorry. The hopium lasts only so long. I've been watching them all year long. I just expect something to go haywire at the end.
Well, there's hopium and then there's opium, Trace, because CFB Knights thinks that we will win the championship this season. I think I can just hit that button for you right now. No, just kidding. That's the one we want to hit. There's very, very, very slim chance that we win the conference tournament. Do you agree with that?
No, there's no chance. There's a better chance that they beat Memphis, but not beat Houston.
Unger to Unger takes us to the Wayback Machine. Taylor Hendricks goes all Antonio McDice in the AAC tournament and skyrockets up draft boards, becoming a top 8 pick. Trace, do you have any recollection of the great career of former NBA star Antonio McDice?
Some recollection. I do not think this happens, however.
I hope it does, because that means obviously he's got the dog in him, right? He took UCF to great heights. I still think he's going to be a pretty sought after prospect. I think that 15 to 25 range is where he's at. I don't know if he gets up to top 8 though. That may be a bit aggressive.
Agreed.
You agree? Okay, good. James DU with a bunch of numbers afterwards that I'm not going to read. Do we give up on basketball going into next year because we will get rocked in the Big 12, or do we try to salvage? And does this decision depend on if Taylor Hendricks stays? So basically, I think James DU with a bunch of numbers is asking, without Taylor, are we going to be in a tough spot next year, Trace? Do you agree with this hot take? Is this a good hot take?
With or without Taylor, they got their work cut out for them. I was saying to Jason Beatty of the Orlando Sentinel at the game on Sunday, can the Knights win 5 games in this Big 12? Maybe you split with Cincinnati. Maybe you get a BYU. Where are the other wins? Maybe
Virginia's a little down right now. I don't know where they're at. That's a tough one. It's a tough one.
That's tough. How about Brett Yormark, by the way? He's talking about, we've been mentioning Gonzaga, but he's saying that maybe a Seton Hall or something. He's talking about adding. Yeah. I like how UConn got thrown into the mix in that.
But they were very clear, basketball only. The Big 12 wants no part of UConn football. They were very clear about that.
But I think it's interesting. He's you were out of golf day. I don't know if you saw the statement from AAC Commissioner, our good friend of the program, Mike Oresco, saying, "Stop it with all this power and non-power. This is the guy that rebranded Power 6 for years," right? So what is he saying now? It's funny. Brett Yormark, though, is really he comes at it from a different perspective, right? He's not that traditional athletic director that's worked his way up through the ranks. So he's been a breath of fresh air so far.
UCF not. Since Colorado is confirmed to be a Big 12 member, it's time to go full space, Trace. No, go nuts. Yes, go nuts.
No, terrible.
No?
Terrible. Horrible.
And I assume he's saying this because Colorado has a very similar color scheme to UCF. Is that what the okay.
So he wants us to be powder blue. I got it. Yeah. No. Again, for the record, I'm fine with this Citronaut stuff. Once a year for every sport. Tennis can wear it, golf can wear it. That's fine. Sell it. Get the merch out there. But a full rebrand, absolutely no.
UCF, Terry Mohajir needs to take a masterclass from Danny White on how to market and fundraise.
I'm going to agree with that one. We exchanged messages, and I had some travel this week, so chasing all of this down was difficult with work. But my friend Paul covers Tulane women's basketball, does the radio broadcasts, and they had the late game, and he said, your band's not even here yet, and we're into the second quarter of the game. And I said, well, that's interesting, right? And then he said, I don't even think they're playing your fight song. They just seem to have stuff coming out of the speakers. And so I messaged someone I know with a band, and the Jammin' Knights were not on that trip. And it turns out that so I asked the AAC, who supplies the band. He says that's up to the team. They got to have a band there. They got to have a mascot there. It looks like UCF hired a high school band to play. And the men's team took a commercial flight when they left the other day for Fort Worth. So I know we have a split in this fan base, especially with Mike, not here to defend himself about resources, but can't even send the Jammin' Knights to Fort Worth to cheer on the men and the women in the conference championships. Come on now.
Last one. Lonely Bee. Pools are better than beaches, Trace. The hottest of all hot takes. Mario is going to pro pool, anti-beach.
They're very different. Does it suggest that you have the pool? You have a pool, or you got to go?
Dealer's choice. Yeah.
Yes. Pools are better than beaches.
This is 1,000% the right take.
Yeah.
The amount of, I think I've talked about this on the show, the amount of effort it takes to go to the beach alone, it makes me exhausted, right? Having to find parking, having to lug all that stuff on the sand is boiling hot, finding a spot, putting the thing in the ground for the umbrella, the chairs. I mean, it's like it's like a wedding. It's like an orchestrated event. I don't have time for that. Let me get in the pool, let me get my drink, and I'm good to go. So this is 1,000%. Mario is right about a lot of things. This may be his best take ever.
Mario is right about a lot of things.
Yes.
We should do some sort of ranking, maybe a top five. For
Top five, what are we doing?
Of top five best, most accurate on Twitter.
Ooh. Wow. Last time I tried to rank the top five listeners, I think we had 9 on there.
You left out a couple. And people
I
get
did leave out a
upset.
couple. Yeah, that was unfortunate. Yeah.
All
right.
I've been starting to, JP gets under my skin about the Johnny Dawkins stuff, but I think I'm going to start tracking what I agree with. I vehemently disagree with him on the Citronauts, but he's decidedly anti-Oresco. So that's one I tend to, I like his posts on Twitter. So I got to start paying attention to JP's takes and see how many of them I agree with. So, all right, what's your final prediction? UCF Memphis, and are you doing a show on Monday where you talked about AAC champions UCF?
Probably no to both, Trace. Unfortunately, I think this one potentially ends our season. I'm going to go Memphis on this one.
Yeah, until they show me otherwise, they struggle with Memphis, and I know those games were close this year, but got to get over the hump, got to win those games. So I want to thank our guest Parth from the Daily Memphian, and of course Stephen Branca for being with us. We missed UCF Mike this week, men's basketball on Friday night, and I want to thank all of you for joining Adam and I for the Sons of UCF Live. Adam, have a good rest of your week and weekend, and I'll catch you here same time. I'll be in St. Louis though. I've got a work trip, so we're going to play fun with hotel Wi-Fi as I join you next week from the Central Time Zone for Sons of UCF Live at 8:00 Eastern next Thursday. Go Knights!
We'll be there, Trace. And here's a goodbye for you all.
I'm Jazz Williams from UCF Softball. Thanks for watching Sons of UCF.
Another